Are you from around Nebraska?
Sort of. We moved here when I was 13 years old, and I'm 33 now, so I feel pretty native. But before that, we were in a military family, so we moved up and down the east and west coast.
Awesome. Was that most of your life? Or 13?
Yeah, until I was 13. Yeah.
What classes, what major are you in?
So I am studying ecology, and so a lot of math and science mostly for my classes.
Do you think these classes have helped shape your future?
Definitely. I think I've definitely learned some things. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know until someone shows you. So you could say like, oh, I want to study ecology and Google that all day, but you don't actually really know the details of what you're supposed to be researching until someone points you in the right direction. I think that has a lot to do with these things. And then there's concepts that I didn't really understand until someone laid them out for me. I really thought of genetics as kind of the math of biology, and it definitely is, but it wasn't until I got here that I realized how interesting and cool it was and how different it feels than math. So it was something that was a huge interest to me, even though math is a weak point in my science major for me.
Do you think it sparked more interest in the career field you're
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And it narrowed it down a lot as far as what my direct goals are, but it also broadened my possibilities. So like if maybe the narrowed goal that I've created for myself doesn't work out, I have discovered a lot of other fields that would be really interesting for me and given myself a lot more opportunity.
All right. So has it canceled out other ideas, particularly?
Yeah, it's narrowed down and given me more direction. So I had some other stuff that was more like a safety fallback, thinking that's what I had to do because I thought that was all there was. So once they expanded my opportunities, I realized that I could be more specific with what I wanted.
What clubs are you in?
So I am the current president of the STEM Club, and then I am the game advisor for the Level Up Club, which is basically a D&D and tabletop role-playing game club.
Awesome. Are you involved in other ones, or are those just your leadership positions?
Yeah, those are the only clubs I'm involved in. I'm also a part of the NASA Fellowship, so I'm involved in the makerspace. I wouldn't necessarily call it a club, but it's a grant through NASA where certain kids that have applied that have had their grants approved get to do research here for NASA on campus.
Did you go through that process through WNCC?
I did, yeah. We have Bill Loring here has a kind of an opening in the NASA grant thing where he can suggest people and he can bring them into the fellowship. But we had to write grant proposals and submit them, and then the NASA Nebraska Fellowship had to approve our grants and decide whether or not the research made sense, and then they provided funding for us to be able to do our own individual projects. And then NASA's name gets to be on it, which is pretty cool. It's a really small project, so it's not like we're working for NASA or doing some sort of major patented research, but it's a great place to start, and being able to put NASA on your resume is huge, even if it's this little fellowship.
That's cool. I guess I wrote down, have any of the clubs that you've done provided you with soft skills like leadership or communication?
Yeah, I think that we've done a lot of problem solving with, I think as the president of the STEM Club, that's been a lot of problem solving. I think we kind of fulfill that nerds aren't necessarily great at social skills stereotype a lot, and so networking within the STEM Club is a far different experience than other groups I've been a part of, because all of us are kind of struggling with the same thing and figuring out how to get along when being in a group setting is already hard. So I've learned a lot about networking in that regard. Same kind of thing with the tabletop role playing, but it's a completely different type of environment. You're really focused on fun in one and leisure, and in the other side you're focused more on making sure that the students that I work with are being able to access grants and opportunities through the STEM Club that WNCC can provide.
Because I didn't know that you could do grants and stuff through the STEM.
It's more like we point you in the right direction for them, and we help network that. So it's like the STEM Club people know stuff and can point you in the right direction, and then we can say the STEM Club at WNCC referred this person, and it kind of puts that gold star that says, I'm definitely a STEM student. Here I am attached to this extracurricular activity, and it makes it more likely that you'll gain access to those opportunities. But also the advisors in the STEM club have connections with like the research center and different communities in town that are going to go directly through them for internships and things like that. So I got an internship this summer with the Research Center for Soil Research that I never would have had if I wasn't a part of the STEM club, because I wouldn't have known it existed, for one, but also they went to my advisors for that referral, and the only reason I got the referral was because I was in the group that they were asking about.
So did you learn a lot through that little internship?
No, I'm getting that this summer, so I assume I will.
Summer.
Yeah, there's no part of my future in ecology that isn't going to require some form of soil sampling and soil sciences. I have no history in that, so no matter what direction I take, all the little branches I'm looking at, I need this research. So I think it'll be huge. Already looking at it, it's going to be major.
That's cool. Okay, I did the soft skills. What about like hard skills? Like, I put down accounting or like Excel or Photoshop. Has there been anything like that you've learned in your program that's specific to your program, kind of that'll help you?
I learned a lot more about genetics and understanding how to try and figure out what genetic changes are happening in a population over time. And I hadn't seen a Punnett square before I came to school here. I had a really non-traditional education when I was a kid. Didn't think I could go to college, so getting here and being able to do that, I saw things for the first time that I think other students saw back in regular school. Yeah, I had a weird upbringing. So I guess a lot of the direct genetic stuff I've learned. I already had a lot of word skills because I've been in the workforce before this, but I'll be learning Python this next semester, and that'll be huge because a lot of the sensors that I'm trying to use for different like planarium, terrarium science, I don't understand how they work, but they're Python programming. So once I understand the Python programming, I won't just be using the sensors, I'll understand how to kind of build and program them.
So do you know what you want to do in your future?
Yes, I would like to be a nearshore ecologist that specializes in invasive species management. I'd specifically like to do nearshore ecology on the Gulf Coast.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would study an ecosystem and advise on that ecosystem, and then I would be the person that people consult when an invasive species enters that ecosystem. I would advise what is going to happen next and what should you do in order to respond to this invasive species.
Sounds like it's like getting you there.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
I'm pretty excited. I hope I can do everything necessary to get there. I struggle a lot in math, so I rely pretty heavily on like the math lab and tutoring here to get through that, but everything else kind of comes together and I understand it.
Has it taught you like any life lessons being here or being in the clubs?
I'm learning a lot about conflict resolution in a group setting. I always knew that leadership was never about telling people what to do. It was always really just an organizational position, trying to figure out where everybody fits best and being able to put together a team. But I am learning a lot about how to respond when there's like inner conflict and what that looks like and what to expect to come next. I didn't realize it was so like that you could kind of predict it until now, but I'm learning that through mostly my mentors on, I'll be like, oh, this is, and they have this guideline system that I can't remember all the names of, but there's a process in team building called storming, which is where everybody's disagreeing. And what's really happening is you're trying to figure out where everybody fits in, and they haven't kind of fit into their slots yet, so they're all bumping heads. But that's a temporary situation, and if you accept that it's a temporary situation and you recognize to stop being emotional about it and move on to expecting the next process to happen.
I think that's handy for even just like life in general. So
yeah, I thought it was a really neat skill to learn, and I think it helped because I started with the STEM club. I've been the STEM club president for a couple semesters now, and then this Level Up Gaming advised position is new. But as the advisor, I know a lot about. They chose me as the advisor because I am the only one that's been a cabinet member in a club before, and this is a brand new club, so they're trying to figure out how everything works. And then I have, because I'm the oldest person in the club, I have more experience with like the tabletop gaming, and I've been playing D&D for a really, really long time, so I can advise on all of those technical details without having to show up to every presidential event. But I've learned a lot about conflict resolution from the STEM club that I'm carrying over to this new club too. So,
do you know if you have to do like a master's or a doctorate or to do what you want to do?
Yes. So the bare minimum in order to do any sort of field work or to be you're a biologist at bachelor's degree. But if I want to write on the subject or be considered the expert in anything, I'm going to need a minimum of a master's degree. For me, I would like to get my bachelor's, start doing nearshore ecology and invasive species management, and obtain my master's degree while I'm doing that, and then move on to something called SciComm, which is science communications. It's where you take, anytime you see an article that says scientists have discovered, that's written by someone in SciComm. They've taken the actual research journals that are written in all the jargon, and they've translated it to layman's terms that the general public can understand. And I would like to do that writing. I would like to be involved. But in order to do SciComm, you have to have a master's degree in the field you're writing about, so that you can recognize all of the terms and see where they're going.
Do you know where you're going to go for bachelor, master's?
I'm hoping to go to Evergreen University in Olympia, Washington, because it's a very hands-on, everything that you're learning is going to be related directly to your field. So even the mathematics, when you get into it, it's going to be hands-on learning. You're using this mathematical algorithm, for instance, to calculate the changes in a population over time using specific formulas. And that's different than the learning that we do here, where we're learning tools, but we don't know why we're learning the tools. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, you just need to memorize this equation because you need to memorize this equation. But they don't tell you, what the ultimate problem that you're trying to solve is. In Evergreen, they kind of flip that on its head and they say, okay, everything that you're learning needs to be directly applicable to the work you're doing. So you'll be doing an internship while you're there, and then it's one program instead of a bunch of different classes. And all of the things you're learning, the math, the science, even the writing, is going to be related directly to that.
It'd probably be easier to focus on because you're not going through total schooling studies and stuff.
Yeah. It's a very different program, but from what I understand, it's kind of the way they used to do it back in the day. If you look at Darwin and the credentials that he had, he was considered a naturalist. He wasn't a biologist because that wasn't really a thing. It was always just a grouping of different things that you would expect to learn for the field that you were in. So he didn't have a very specific degree because that just wasn't how the schooling was done. I might be wrong about that. That's history, which is not my major. But that was I went to a seminar where Olympia, some school was talking about that, and that this was an older way of learning. It's not a new radical concept. It's actually just going back to the basics.
So how did you learn about Olympia?
I reached out to, I have a learning disorder in mathematics. I basically struggle to retain any abstract chronological concepts, which is all of algebra. And I went and got an IQ test, and an IQ spectrum test splits up your intelligence into the 9 different quadrants, or 9 different sections. And then it calculates what your overall IQ score is based off of those. But you get a line graph by the end of it that kind of shows you where your strengths and weaknesses are. So maybe you might be weak in one area, but you're really strong in another area. I got that done, and then once we kind of saw where my weaknesses were, I started looking for schools that were based off of that concept. And my basic thing was verbal and hands-on learning were my top scores. My verbal reasoning was my highest IQ score. It was the best that I had, and so I looked for schools that specifically fit that niche, and then went online and communicated with biologists who've already gone through school and talked to them about which schools work directly with that. So I interviewed people that already have doctorates on, what school do you think would work for this? I went onto Reddit and was like, hey, I have this particular mathematics disorder. Does anybody in the biology field who's obtained a doctorate, have you had this disorder and been able to achieve college success despite that? And there were a few people that were like, oh yeah, I have that disorder and I made it through. And they were able to kind of advise me on what direction to go next. And this school came up more often than any of the others. Yeah, it was kind of a rabbit hole.
You're I gotta go to this school. I gotta learn.
Yeah, so it's definitely my top pick. I have some backups, but those are my top picks.
Do you know if there's scholarships for being in STEM club, be president?
I don't think there's any scholarships specifically for that. We used to have a STEM Connect scholarship. But that ended last year and the funding ended, so we just don't have that one anymore. That was a pretty substantial one. I think mostly the STEM Club president thing is when you're applying to schools, especially universities, they're going to want to see that you've done a lot of extracurricular activities and that you do things out of enthusiasm and drive outside of I need to do this for my degree or I have to do this for money. They want to see you do extra stuff. They want to see you care. And so I think that's what that's really going to help with. It'll also kind of prove that I have some leadership ability, which I think people get a little nervous about when you see a resume with no leadership ability on it. They're like, oh, I don't know if this person's a good team builder.
So with the aquatics, like, what is it called? The ones with the fish?
The aquaponics system.
Yeah, aquaponics, yes.
Yeah.
So do you work on that a lot, don't you?
I am actually the oldest, like, the longest standing member of the aquaponics team. The other ones graduated. So I was there when we put the concept originally together, constructed the frame, and then when we started to get the fish tank cycling. And cycling was a process because we were relying on bacteria that we were introducing into the system to consume nitrogen and produce the things that we needed for the plants to be able to stabilize on their own without relying entirely on a filtration system. And so I was part of the team that did that. And then they graduated and left, and I was the only one here during the summer working on it, which was very discouraging at first. I was like, oh, everybody's given up on the system. I haven't gotten any new team members to join. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just doing this alone. I work here as an employee, so I was here all summer working in the library and just kept coming back in through the day. And then our current treasurer showed up, and he was like, oh, are you working on this alone? I'll come and work with you. And slowly we built it up to the point where it is now, and it's been really successful. I'm really excited about it.
Is that Zach?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
We used to be in the biolab. Like, it used to be hidden in the biolab.
Oh.
All summer, all of last year, it was hidden in the biolab. And then once we got it up and operational, where the plants are doing things and the fish are stable and the nitrogen cycle is stable, we could bring it out and kind of showcase it. But yeah, Zach West is the treasurer.
Yeah. I saw you have a camera in there and show it, and I think it's cool.
Yeah, the main reason that we chose the aquaponics system for the STEM club was we were trying to take, we had a wide variety of different STEM majors. STEM is huge, right? So we were like, how can we take the life science students, the robotics students, the engineering students, and get a project that they can all work on together and enjoy? So we have biology, we have ecology, we have microbiology, robotics, we have computer programming, all involved in putting this project together. So when you see that camera, the system for the camera and all of the sensors, if you go online, there's actually you can track the temperature and what's going on in the water and the pH balance. There's all sensors that are inside the water that are able to give the computer updates on an online website that our kids built. So they built the website, they programmed the sensors, they did all of that. And then there was people like me who didn't understand that part. But, I was like, oh, I know what a nitrogen cycle is, and I can work with the bacteria, and I can track what's going on with the plants, and I can see, that the plants are wilting a little bit because they're not getting enough oxygen in their roots to be able to, push out. Yeah, it's kind of awesome.
Do you know what you want to do with it when it's, when the plants are actually, growing and you can... is it lettuce or what are you making? So we've got a few herbs in there right now and a couple of beets. Mostly we're just trying to figure out, there's a couple of mysteries we're trying to solve with it now. The plants have started to yellow, which is very confusing because we've got our light spectrum correct. They're sitting in water, so that's fine. Our nitrates and nitrates are stable and doing things consistently. Our pH balance is good. There's enough calcium carbonate in the water supply. All of our readings look great. Why are our plants yellowing? I think, and this is just today that we finally kind of came up with another solution, I think there's not enough oxygen diffusing into the water in the top bed. And so we're going to need to do some engineering, or need to get the engineering kids on it to put bubblers in the top bed and see if that turns our plants green again. Because we added vitamins, that didn't work either. So it's a lot of
problem solving. Yeah, there's a lot of mysteries that have come about on this project. We had a sad one over the summer. We had a fish get really sick, and he passed away. And we were really trying to figure out what was wrong with him. We were able to diagnose him, which was very exciting because none of us had any experience with veterinary care, especially for fish. And we learned a lot. He passed, and then after he passed, I was like, well, we're in the biolab. So we dissected him. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that he had a tumor that was growing in his intestinal tract and had been blocking his movements. We were never going to be able to save him because we couldn't remove the tumor. He was always going to pass, which was nice because then we found out, okay, this wasn't really our fault. And we know what was wrong with him. We had diagnosed that his swim bladder was inflated and causing him problems. We didn't know that it was because he was septic. So I would never have known how to do that before the aquaponics system. We learned all of that entirely just from this project alone.
So is it ever going to end, or you're just going to keep going with it?
We haven't prepared in the event that it does end, but what we're hoping for is that each semester the STEM kids will continue the project, and that it'll just be an ongoing resource that is available to WNCC. I'm hoping that eventually, once we get the top bed stable, because the aquarium is completely stable, which I cannot express how much work went into that. Getting a stable aquarium is very difficult if you're doing it from scratch and you're doing it as a bioactive environment. But the top bed is all sorts of problematic. We haven't figured that out yet. And once we do, I want people to be able to, other students to be able to get excited about it and grow things in the top bed, their own individual botany projects. It's not ready for that now, but that's kind of something I'm imagining for the future of the project.
That is cool. Do you have to talk to President Dart about it?
Yes, we did a presentation for President Dart, and then he's actually been really involved in, he was one of the major reasons that we were able to get the aquaponics system rolled out where everybody can enjoy it instead of it just being in the biolab. So he's been really backing us and a big proponent for making this something that belongs to the school and not just a couple of STEM kids. So it's been a big deal.
Sweet. I have a few more questions, I guess. What has WNCC done for you? Overall, what do you think the main factors are when I ask that question?
I think they really expanded on what I can and cannot do. I think there's a lot of negative views of education and what people are allowed out there. And when you enter college, especially kind of where I came from, I spent a lot of time in the Bible Belt and in kind of the thick of the Bible Belt, and I really thought there was a lot more limitations on what women were allowed to do. Even as an adult, as far as I've come and lived in this community that doesn't really feel that way for as long as I have, it was like, okay, you're free to do those things if you want, but then I got to school and people were like, oh no, go do them, go do it. It was very encouraging. I've received encouragement I never received from my family, I never received from my community. I've had people that have noticed something that I was mildly interested in and been like, I think this could be really good for you. Let me show you what this looks like. And I never would have just Googled that on my own. I never would have just been on the internet and figured it out. Someone noticed it and was like, hey, there's something you might know about that you might be interested in. Let me show you. And I rode my enthusiasm all the way through.
I was gonna say, because I see you and Zach a lot with aquaponics and just on in booths and stuff, trying to talk to more people about that, and I think that is inspiring. I think.
Yeah.
Passionate.
Zach, when he first started, he was kind of dipping his toe. He's actually a psychology major.
Mm-hmm.
So that's still STEM, but he's like, well, I'm really interested in engineering and botany and all of the psychology stuff. Even though it's not my major, I'd like to be involved in this project. And I was like, yeah. And then he just jumped head first into it to the point that I ended up handing off. I was like, well, I'm already the STEM club president. This is a lot for me. Could you be the project manager for the aquaponics system specifically? And he took that on and has kind of made it one of his number one passions. Zach is working on the aquaponics system every single day. If there's any issues with it, if there's something that needs to happen, Zach is the person making it happen. It's been pretty incredible to see him kind of take that over from where I was at. So
what you don't have to be in one specific area within the school. You can branch out, however, be in as many clubs. Yeah, so our secretary for the STEM club, Jalen, is an art major. But she's like, well, I'm not taking any sciences, but I'm interested in science. Can I be a part of the STEM club? And I was like, yeah, that's part of the reason this club exists. Is, are you interested in STEM? It's not, is STEM your major? Is it interesting to you? Would you like to explore it? Would you like to see what is involved? Would you like to learn more? And we also go on trips where we can learn things. So we did indoor skydiving one semester. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was really cool. And I think my favorite part about it actually wasn't even the skydiving itself, is that before we went in there, they gave us a physics lesson on how that works and why your body is able to kind of lift up, even though you're not a bird. They don't give you wings or anything.
No. You're
just in a jumpsuit with no extra aerodynamic anything. It's just your body, and it's basically it's your rate of terminal velocity, the moment that you stop falling. And yeah, they increase the wind underneath you to force your body into terminal velocity where your body just stays. And they have to measure your weight and your height and all of these different variables in order to get that number so that you don't just go shooting up and you don't fall down. It has to be right here.
So you do a lot of activities like just as a team.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, hey, we're going to do this really interesting thing. We're going to learn about computer science. We're going to learn about insects. We're going to learn about something like that. And then people can sign up to come. This weekend, I am actually hosting a terrarium building project. And the idea is to build a miniature enclosed ecosystem in a jar. Once the lid is put on, it should be self-sustaining. It'll have springtails, which are like kind of the animal that'll be running things in there. And the plants are going to produce the necessary gases to keep the system going. The water will evaporate and reach the lid, which is sealed, and then it'll come back down kind of like a rain cycle. So the condensation on the jar itself is just like it would be in a larger ecosystem. So as long as you don't like put it in direct sunlight and cook it, it should self-sustain. And the springtails will control any mold or other things that they'll kind of do your gardening for you.
That's cool.
Yeah, everyone that shows up to that, it's all the supplies are paid for by the STEM Club. You get to take one home.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You guys have a lot of projects.
We do.
Yeah.
We're a very active group.
Yes. How has the environment affected you? And I put like, for an example, it's a small town, so it's a closer community. Have you felt that, or anything you want to add?
Well, I mean, I've been here since I was 13 and I didn't start going to school till 30. So as far as the town's concerned, I wouldn't say there's been like a shift since I started school that's changed anything. But the environment that's in the school that's different than the environment of the town itself is who I'm connected with in networking, who knows who. And there's people here that know people in other states and other schools that I might want to go to outside of my community. Whereas being in a small town before that would have been really limiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very true. Because there's a lot of international students, and I feel like that question would hit them harder. But I think even in the college itself, yeah, it is a different environment.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of teachers are like, oh, I know somebody at that school that's like 2 states away. You know, I'm not going to get that in my town, but I do get that here with educators who have spent some time outside of this community.
Do you work anywhere?
I work here at the library.
Okay.
I am actually a permanent employee at the library.
Okay.
So regardless of my student status, I'm the night supervisor for the library.
So how do you balance working, homework, and like the clubs that you do?
It kind of feels like I'm cheating, actually, because Allie is like, hey, mostly I just need you to watch and make sure that the other students have what they need and open and close the library late at night. Okay. So other than that, I just do my homework on the job, which for student worker makes sense, but I'm an employee. I'm supposed to prioritize work, and she still lets me do homework. So it does feel a bit like cheating because I'm doing school and homework at the same time. Or I'm doing work and homework at the same time. You're not supposed to be able to do that, but I got lucky.
That's good.
Yeah, it is. I really am grateful for it.
Do you think you'd ever come back to the area?
Yeah, my family lives here. We all like kind of settled down here after my dad retired. So for sure, I don't know if I'll work here. It's one of the branches that's an opportunity. I prefer to specialize in Gulf Coast nearshore ecology, but nearshore doesn't have to be marine based. The sandhills are technically nearshore. I would just be studying like the life that lives in the water against where the land meets the water.
You would prefer like a bigger area though, rather than...
I'd like to do tide pool ecology. So like where like sea urchins and sea stars live in the water that is left behind when the tide goes out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really what I'd like to specialize in. Originally, when I came here, I was thinking I wanted to be a cnidarian biologist, which specializes in cnidarians like jellyfish, corals, and sea anemones. And then I realized that I actually am more interested in the ecosystem they reside in than each of those organisms as an individual.
Do you know if you'd be able to change back if you needed to, or is it like kind of constricting the program and the degree you would get?
I think it'd be pretty simple to switch back, actually, because basically what I'm like, biology is a huge umbrella term for many different fields. Ecology is a group within biology. So I would just need to get more specific information on that field. But because I'm getting the biology degree or the ecology degree, I've got a lot of those basics built up. I won't have to go back and get new basics. I can just add new details on top of what I've already learned.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all of my questions. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think that pretty much covered it.
All right.
A lot of people do say that they don't want to join the STEM club because they think they're not smart enough for the STEM club. It's not. We're not checking anybody's IQ. You just show up and you learn. You can be as involved or not involved as you want, and you can literally just observe and attend and not participate if you want to. So anybody's welcome.